Hey guys, so in this video we're going to go ahead and actually make the template that we just created responsive. So now if you, let's say I'm just resizing the desktop frame, as you can see everything is a bit messed up, which is not something that we want. So I'm just going to go ahead and fix that. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the light. I'm going to say, okay, that's like 1FR, which is pretty okay. This similarly should be 1FR as well. This container should be 1FR as well. This hero section should be whatever, that's fine. And then these particular three things, if we actually have a look at how this looks now, so obviously that's centered, this whole thing is centered, but actually the icons and the circles are a bit messed up. These two things are messed up as well. This looks good, this heading is a bit messed up, the cards are a bit messed up, and I think everything else is okay. One thing that I actually missed here as well is this, there's some text here as well, so I'm just going to say this is going to be black as well so we can see it. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we have these circles here and we're just going to fix them. The first thing that we're going to do for these circles is we're going to remove the left and the right, and we're going to say centered. We're not going to say centered. As soon as we remove left and right, it's already centered. So now if we have a look at it, we resize it. As you can see, this is not centered. Why? I'm actually just messing with the circle. Sorry, it is centered. It should be centered. So yeah, the circles are centered, the icons within the circles are centered as well. Now coming to these three things, these three graphics, I'm just gonna, let's say, put a container out obviously around them, and I'm gonna say these are going to be our intro graphics, and I'm just gonna position them at the center by pressing Option H. Even if I don't do that, it still should be centered. So now if we, let's say, resizing it, as you can see, it's centered. If basically the left or the right aren't pinned, it's going to be centered, because if I pin it to the right, it's always going to maintain its position from the right, so it's not going to work. So both of these things need to be unchecked in order for this to be centered normally on larger screens. Coming to this particular thing, I think we're going to have the same problem here. The reason why it's not centered is because it's pinned to the left, so we're going to remove that and we're going to automatically just center it. One thing that we could have done here in this particular section is just made this an auto layout. So if we made this an auto layout, something like this happens, and then we obviously have to reposition things and all of that. So I'm just going to leave it as it is, and then we can fix it later as well. But one problem with just having, I keep on saying auto layout, what I meant was we could have made that a stack. One problem that we usually face when we have elements like these, and if we convert them into an auto layout or a stack, sorry, and let's say I'm going to position them like this, I'm going to make the header go on top and stuff along those lines. Now, as you can see, things are a bit messed up in my opinion. These things are losing their position. They were a bit like misaligned previously, which was intentional. It was a design decision and all of that stuff. And that just stops happening, which I don't really like. I just don't like that particular thing. But I mean, even if that happens, even if we convert this into a stack, it's still going to look misaligned, and which is our intention, because obviously these are just going to be rotating left and right, which is okay, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make it a stack, but we're just going to actually check the spacing in between these elements. So this is 46, and the spacing in between these two elements is like 8. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to make this a stack. First of all, that's like my first thing. And the spacing in between them is going to be 8, because that's the spacing that was previously there. I'm going to fit this content, and then I'm going to make this a stack. So we're going to make this a stack. We're going to say fit content, and we're going to give a spacing or a gap in between them, which is going to be 48. I know it was 46 or something, but that's a weird number. That's not falling on the 8 pixel grid. So now we have something like this, which I think is okay. And the width is 100%. It could be 1FR as well. It doesn't matter, because that's pretty much the same thing in this instance, because there's only one element. And then we have this particular section, we have this. The only problem why this particularly goes completely to the left, these cards, is because the cards, since this is 100% and it's linked to this container, the container also scales. So what we need to do is we need to just go ahead here and give this particular thing a max width. So because, sorry, max width was wrong, 1200 pixels. So that we don't want this particular thing to scale. So if we are, let's say, resizing it, as you can see, it's going to remain in the middle. So I think overall this looks fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to build our breakpoints. So the first breakpoint that we're going to do here is the tablet one. And let's just fix the tablet one before we even go to the mobile thing. So here we have the tablet. And as you can see, we have some extra spacing applied on the header, which is something that we don't want. So we can go to the component itself if we want to, and we can click on edit the component. We can go here. Now, as you can see, we have a bunch of things here, right? So we have opacity, we have all of that stuff. One thing that I want to do here is I want to reduce the padding, right? So how do I actually reduce the padding here? Well, the first thing that we can do in this component itself is we can actually create another variant here. So we're going to say this is going to be our tablet, and we can rename the previous one to be desktop. And this tablet variant is just going to have a smaller padding on the left and the right, and that's it. So we're going to say the padding on the left and the right should be maybe 24 and 24, I guess. And if we just go here, we're going to say that the variant is going to be tablet and something like this. I think the tablet variant can work potentially in this case. Yeah, I think it can work. And then on mobile, we're just going to have a very different layout where we're going to get rid of the register. We're going to get rid of the links, and we're just going to have a hamburger icon or something along those lines to open this menu. Okay, everything looks good, apart from obviously the fonts. So we haven't linked the fonts anywhere, so we can go ahead and link them now. So I can just go ahead and reduce the font size here. In this particular instance, I can say that this particular font size is, let's say, going to be 64. And one other thing that I need to do, or I should have done, is I should have gone here and I should have, let's say, reduced it. And I'm just going to reduce it here myself manually. And if we created this into in an auto layout, like, it should be fixed, but we have a bunch of elements here. I think we can just obviously play with what we have here as well. One other thing, I probably just want to combine both of these into a stack. I'm going to say this is going to fit content, and the spacing in between both of these is going to be maybe 32, I guess. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, so now if we, let's say, go here, if I, let's say, I can manually change the font sizes as I mentioned, but I can also create a heading style, because we're going to use this heading style in other pages as well. I don't want to go ahead and actually update all of the text sizes manually. I want them to follow this heading color. So I'm going to just basically go ahead and say that it's going to be something like this. The color is going to be that, and all of that's good. And on, let's say, the tablet view, I'm going to add the breakpoints. That on the tablet view, on the medium view, maybe the size is going to be, I don't know, 64. Yeah, I think that's fine. And this particular thing looks fine. If we want to actually go ahead and bring these things closer a bit on the tablet view, we can. I'm just going to go ahead and say that these are going to be a bit closer. And this whole frame is actually going to be somewhere here. If I, let's say, press command and then try to resize it, it's not going to mess with the elements that are inside the space. I can just do 100% and that's going to work. And I'm going to say that this is going to be centered. Okay, so now if we have a look at this, we have something like this. And if we try to resize it, we have something like this. Now, this is not something that I actually want. I don't think that looks good personally to me. I don't think it looks good. So one thing that we're going to do here is, okay, so this is 100%. Actually, this here should be 100% to begin with. So I'm just going to say this is going to be 100%. And there's going to be a max width applied to it, which is going to be, let's say, 1200. So if I just do that, 1200 pixels, sorry. If I just do that, I can just go ahead and I can say that this particular thing is going to be, I'm going to reset the overrides that I just set manually. I'm going to reset them. And is this centered? I'm just going to center it. Okay, that's centered. This is going to be 100% in width. And I think it should be fine now. It should automatically be fine. If you actually set your first frame correctly, it's automatically fine. So it's something like this on the tablet, which I think is pretty okay. Okay, so now that we're done with that, let's just go ahead and actually just preview the tablet so we can see what's going on. Then we have something like this. Obviously, we don't see these elements. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say that this whole thing, actually, I'm just going to go here and I'm going to say this is going to be okay, 100%. That's fine. Is this 100%? Yes, that's fine as well. This is 100% and this particular thing is also 100%. Actually, on the container itself, we want to say that there should be a max width set of, we can just go do the same thing here, 1200 pixels, and this should be 100%, something like this. Okay, that works, but however, that actually messes this particular thing up. So we're going to go to the logos and we can easily just say that this particular stack that we see here is actually going to wrap, and every single content inside of this is actually going to be centered. So that's actually fixes it, and it should work on mobile as well, depending on the space that's available. So that's done. Now coming to this particular section, now basically whenever you see something like this messed up, you don't have to go ahead and fix it here. You should actually just go ahead and fix it directly in the main frame. So we're going to do the same thing, 1200 pixel here, and this is going to be 100% in width. So that should be fixed. Now it's our decision if we actually want to change this particular thing a bit on tablet as well, and I think we should do that. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to say the font size for this particular thing is going to be 24, and both of these things should actually just wrap. So just quite simply, it should wrap. And one other thing, there shouldn't be a space in between now. It should just be at the start, and this launch thing is just going to be rightly tied to it. And maybe here the spacing is not going to be, let's say 100, well actually it can be 100%, but on the left and the right of this particular thing there should be a gap, so 32 pixels, and I'm just going to remove the top and the bottom because that's not something that we need. So that's a size that we're setting, that every single content can actually just have a 32 pixel spacing on the edges. And let me just give this like 1 FR. Okay, so that should be fixed. And is there a bit too much spacing here in between? If we want, we can reduce it on tablet if we think it's a bit too much. Okay, I think that's fine, it's reduced. And then our service pack. Okay, so this is our heading 2, right? So I'm going to say this is going to be a new style for the heading, which is going to be heading 2. And what's the size of the heading 2? So heading 1 is like 84, heading 2 is like 80. And that's intentional. There's not a lot of spacing or not a lot of like differences in between these two headings, but okay, that's fine. This is 64 now, and I think this was also 64 if I'm not mistaken on the medium size. So this is 64 here. Actually this should be a bit lower, so maybe this should be 56 I guess on the smaller size, because we definitely want that distinction there. Okay, so that's done. One other thing here, as I mentioned, this we can just make this 1 FR, and this particular text should also be 1 FR. Okay, that's done. Another problem that I see here is that, as you can see, there's no padding applied here. So in order to apply a padding, we can just say that there should be a 32 by 32 pixel padding on the edges. That's not going to mess anything up on the desktop frame, but it's just going to define how the mobile and the smaller frames actually appear. So let's just go to the tablet view. So this is the tablet view. And if we go down, this looks fine. Actually, even let's go even smaller. Then we have something like this. This looks fine as well. Our cards, okay, so the cards don't look fine. And on the cards, we're going to do something pretty simple. We're just going to go, and now that we've defined the headings, we're just going to say this is going to be our heading 2 as well. And we also want to go ahead and actually copy or make this 100% in width. So I'm just going to say 100% in width, but I want to copy a bunch of other things as well. I want to copy the padding and all of that stuff. So I can just go here. I can just press Command Option C. Come here, press Command Option V. So we have the padding and stuff here as well that I think looks good. And this particular thing should also be 1 FR. So we're just going to make it 1 FR. Now, one problem that I see here in this particular instance is that there's a lot of padding on the edges, right, of this particular container, which is something that I'm not completely sure of. So we can actually just go ahead and reduce the padding. We can say the padding is going to be, actually it can be 32 and 32 from the edges, but from the top and the bottom it can be the same as the previous one, which was 60. So that's fine. Now here I just want to say the cards are going to be at the top, and this is going to be at the bottom. And yeah, I guess that looks fine. Should there be wrapping? Should there not be wrapping? That's completely our decision. So I think that's fine, and I think this should look okay. So if we, let's just actually just view the tablet frame for now, so we can see how the tablet frame looks. So we have something like this. I think this looks good. Similarly here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to link this particular heading to our heading 2. That's fine. And this thing can be our heading 3. Well, actually it looks way too small for heading 3. I'm not really sure about it. So let's just make it heading 4. We can also, I guess, like this is heading 2 as well, but I'm not really sure why it's so small here. We can actually increase it. Should we increase it? I'm not really sure. Let's just keep it like as unlinked here in this particular instance, because I'm not really sure what treatment the designer actually wanted. So I can obviously confirm that with him as well if I want to. So here in this particular instance as well, I'm just going to paste the padding as well and everything on this particular container, I guess. So the padding is placed. This thing should be 1FR. So we're just going to make it 1FR. And okay, so here in this particular instance, I guess I'm just going to select it here. This is 100%, but this isn't 100%. This should be 100%, and there should be a max width applied to it, which is like 1280 pixels. And then we're going to go here, I guess here, and then we're going to say this is going to be similarly, we can say whether it's a grid or a stack. We can just say it's going to be a something like this, I guess. And there should be a bit more gap, like maybe 64, I guess. Maybe that's fine. Okay. One other thing that I'm actually noticing here is this. There's no 1FR applied to it. So this should be 1FR. This should also be 1FR. So that's something that I guess like I messed up or missed up. So now as you can see, the text is actually respecting the containers as well. Now coming to this section, let's just go here. We're going to say this is going to be 1FR. That's fine. And should there be a maximum width? Well, actually, let's just go here. This should be 1FR and the max width should be 1280 pixels. So we're going to say a max width of 1280 pixels. Okay, that looks good. Coming here, we have something like this. And actually double clicking on it. So we have something like this, and we have made this absolute, so we can change that. We don't want it absolute in this particular instance. It can be relative, so it can just go to the bottom. Here, this can be 1FR, and the max, actually, should it be 1FR? Well, maybe it's okay. Okay, 1FR, and in this particular instance, everything should be basically be centered, so we're going to center it, and the spacing in between everything should be maybe be a bit too much, and this particular width height should also decrease. So we're going to say 492 divided by 2. That looks a bit way too small. So maybe this is fine as well. So if we, let's say, just go down and see how this looks on the tablet view. As you can see, a few things are messing up there. And the reason why, if anything basically messes up, it's basically the mistake that you've done here. So if we just go here, this should obviously be 1FR. If we're going to press Command Option Enter, it's going to select all of the children's, and we're going to say 1FR as well. So now it should be fixed. So if we go here, and the issue that we were seeing here should now not be an issue, and this should actually start working on mobile as well. We just need to obviously fix the sizes as well. We're going to go here. We're going to say that I'm going to create another variant. This is going to be our tablet variant. And in this tablet variant, the spacing on the edges should just be 32 by 32. And I think that's fine. Let's just go here and change this variant to tablet. Okay, I think this is done. So now coming to our mobile or our phone section. So this is our phone element. So obviously we need to fix the header. We need to fix this. Again, this is a bit messed up. Like, why is this messed up? If anything is messed up here, that basically means that we haven't fixed it. So we're going to say that there should be a max width applied to it. Now, if you want to just make this 100% and you want to keep all of that, like the width, there a fixed size, that's perfectly fine as well. So now this looks fine. But as you can see, this doesn't look fine. Like, why is that? Why is this not fine? Is the reason because like we actually manually modified this particular width? So that's not something that we should have done. So I'm just going to say 1FR here. I'm going to say 1FR here. And even if we don't want to say 1FR, we can just reset the overrides. Now that's fine. Then obviously we have to fix the sizing and everything, but okay, that's fine. Now coming to this particular thing, we're going to go to our heading similarly, and we're going to say that I want to add another breakpoint. So as you can see, I don't have an option to add another breakpoint. So we're going to right click it and we're going to add another breakpoint here. And we're going to define what the font size is going to be. Should it be 32 here? Nope, I think 48 is fine. So let's just keep that at 48. Now this particular section obviously doesn't look good. So obviously we can't really just go ahead and display everything. So we can make a conscious decision to just hide both of these elements from this, especially from, let's say, mobile. So we're going to say, and we're going to basically just go ahead and hide the visibility here. So if we just have a look at, actually, let me just open the mobile variant. So I think this looks fine. I think, however, we should actually reduce this mobile graphic, or maybe it's fine. I guess like maybe it's fine. And if you obviously want to reduce it, there's no big deal there as well. One other thing that I actually want to apply at the top level here is we have all of this set up, but I want to add a padding here. So I'm going to say the left and the right padding should be 32 by 32. And maybe we can increase this size to 1200 or maybe 1000, I guess. so we don't mess any of the alignment of the text. So I think this looks good. This mobile device now can be reduced, I guess. First of all, I'm going to log this device. I'm just going to select the intro graphic, and I'm going to say this is going to be divided by 1.3. So maybe a size, actually let's just increase, maybe a size like this would probably be okay. So I think this looks okay. This looks a bit more balanced. Now coming to this section, we're just going to reduce the padding at the top and the bottom. So 48, that's good. Now as you can see, a bunch of things are messed up here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the text. Since the text is messed up, I'm going to say 1FR. So okay, that's fine. And this should also be 1FR. The parents layer width has been set to fixed to avoid a layout collapse. Okay. So if we just go to the, actually let me just press Command Z, go here, we have this icon here and we have this text here. I'm not even sure why this text is wrapped within an auto layout, but I mean, I don't know, the developer knows, the designer knows probably. So if we just go ahead and give this 100% in width, that's fine. Then we're gonna go ahead and actually also, first of all, go here. What is this? This is a stack. The wrapping is yes. Okay, that's fine. We're going to go to this particular text element here. This needs to be 1FR. And then we're going to go here. This also needs to be 1FR. The text needs to be left aligned. It should be a bit reduced in height, in size. So that's fine. Okay. And now this is a bit messed up. So we're just going to enable the wrapping here. And we're going to go here and we can enable the wrapping here as well. Or we can just say this is going to be stacking top and bottoms. Sorry, here. Let's go here. What is going on here? So this is on the left. We can just align it at the top and the bottom. I wasn't really sure what's going on there. So let's just say this is going to be 0 and this is going to be on the left. And actually, I think this should actually reduce in font size as well. So we can go here and we can say this should be 14. The icons here, can they be reduced? Well, they're coming from Font Awesome and we don't have Font Awesome link. So that's one thing just to convey to my developer, not to use Font Awesome. I think I did convey it to him, but maybe he forgot to change it here. So sorry, the designer. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say this is going to be Apple. This is our Apple logo. This doesn't really look like the Apple logo, but I mean, if Phosphorus is using it and they're allowing Phosphorus to change the Apple icon in this sense, then maybe it's okay, I guess. And we're going to reduce the font size to maybe 24. And since we're updating this particular icon here, it may mess up some of the other screens as well, sometimes. And we're going to say this is going to be reduced. I'm going to reduce the height. I'm going to say this is going to be 24 as well. And then we're going to go here and we're going to change that to Android logo. There you go. The height is going to be 24. We're going to remove that. We're going to make the color white. Sorry, white here. And I think that is okay, I guess. And we can also reduce these buttons in size as well if we want to. The padding maybe here can be 12. Okay, so I think that looks good. This whole thing looks good. Now coming to the bottom, as you can see, something is messed up here. And it shouldn't be messed up. This should actually, even though I have mentioned it tons of times, this should be 1FR. If we just do that, it's going to fix it. But I keep on missing that. So we're going to go and we're going to add the other breakpoint that we just created. So there's the breakpoint. The size for this particular breakpoint is just going to be 32. Okay, so I think that looks good. Everything else is going to automatically flow here. Now coming to this particular section, actually I think this looks fine. I don't mind if the cards are being cropped. I'm just going to make this 1FR. And these whole cards, actually this whole graphic, these 3 cards. Okay, I just want to make sure that these are correctly selected and there's not really anything else there. Okay, that's fine. These 3 cards, I'm just going to select all of them and I'm going to move them manually somewhere here so they are centered. Okay, and I can actually just group them as well. Actually, let me just go ahead and group them into another frame here and then center them and remove the left and the right because I want them to be centered always. So now if you're having a look at it, I think we have something like this. And if I'm scaling it, like for example, on a slightly larger mobile device, this is looking good as well. Okay, that's done. Now coming to this particular section, obviously this needs to have a lot of improvements. The first improvement that I want to do here is I want to say this text is going to be 1FR. That's fine. Then all of these, the container here should be 1FR as well. So that's okay. Now we're going to come here, we're going to come here, and we're going to come here, and we're going to say this is going to be 1FR as well. And there should be wrapping here. So the wrapping is not going to work because unfortunately my designer actually went ahead and created auto layouts within, or stacks within stacks, or auto layouts within auto layout for some magical reason. I don't know. And this is a mistake that a lot of designers make. And I'm not really sure why people make this mistake. It really bothers me. But never mind, I'm going to do the wrap thing here as well. Now, if I do the wrap thing, we just want to make sure it doesn't actually go ahead and mess anything there, which it shouldn't, because when we're wrapping things here, we're just changing the CSS. CSS changes don't really mess any of the other elements up, so we should be good here. So wrap here, and then we're going to wrap here, which should be fine. Then similarly, wrap here, and this should just be at the start. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap this particular element as well. Now, as you can see, the reason why this is basically coming on the right is because there's not really a lot of spacing here. So one thing that we're going to do is we can just go ahead and give this like, sorry, what happened? I accidentally selected everything and I just did something. We can just say that this particular content, these values should actually just be 100%. So as you can see, if I'm giving this 100%, that's working. If I'm giving this 100%, that's not working. So first of all, obviously this whole thing needs to be 1FR, which it isn't. And similarly, we're going to go ahead and say 1FR, 100%. And I think this looks good. Okay, so that's done. Now coming to this particular section, as you can see, if something is not fixed here, if it's like scaling way beyond the edges, then that basically means this is not 1FR, especially if things are within an auto layout. Now coming to this particular thing, we're going to say that this is not going to be 3 columns. This is just going to be 1 column. So that should be fixed, and we can make this 1 column here, like 2 columns here. I think maybe 2 columns are going to work better here in the tablet view. So we're going to say this is going to be 2 columns. I think that's fine. Now, as you can see, this is not fixed as well. So we're going to go here. We're going to say this is going to be 1FR. We're going to press Command Option A to select both of these. We're going to say these are also going to be 1FR. And that's still not fixed. Wow. Okay, 100%. Coming here. Okay, as you can see, that's not fixed. So we're going to go and we're going to say the max width is going to be 100%, and that should be fixed. Coming to this section, we're going to say the columns are just going to be 1. The spacing in between them can be reduced a bit to 24 now that they're just like aligned like that. And then here, as you can see, it's still a bit messed up. So we're going to go here. Well, actually, we can just fix it here. So we're going to go here. We're going to say this is going to be 1FR. Now it's saying the parent actually has something which is messing it up. So we're going to say this is going to be 1FR. This particular thing, now this text inside of this is also going to be 1FR. And have we actually selected a style here? I don't think we have. So what's the font size here? It's 48. If we want to give this a style, we can go ahead and actually give this a heading 4 or something. So let's just give this a heading 4. We're going to say this is going to be 48. That's fine. Add breakpoints, small, medium, large, 48, 38, and then I guess like 28 something. Okay, that's fine. Now as you can see, something messed up here. So I'm just going to press Enter, Shift, Enter to basically add a correct line break. Then we have this. I think we have a lot of padding here. So we are going to go ahead and reduce this to 40 all around. And we're going to say this is going to just wrap if there's not enough space. So I think that's done. We're going to go to our iPhone. We can say this is going to be much smaller, divided by 2. So I think that's fine. And now if we just, let's say, play this particular mobile device. Actually, let me select something on the mobile so we can see the mobile device. So I think overall it looks good. If we want, we can do obviously certain tweaks like reducing these. Now the cards aren't visible. Cards sometimes disappear on their own, which is something that I noticed previously as well. So what we're going to do here on the cards section is we're going to select all of these cards with the animation. this one, and then this one, and we are going to say that this is going to be centered and the replay is going to be there. So this is always going to be visible when that particular thing is centered. So let's go to our mobile version. So here's the mobile version. So if we come back up, now the cards are going to be there. So that shouldn't be messed up now. So I think that's done. Now we can go ahead and we can tweak our footer if you want. So let's go to the footer actually. This is our footer. Let's create a mobile variation here as well. So I'm going to say this is going to be mobile. Maybe the size, we're just going to manually reduce it to something like 400. And obviously this is going to be fill containered there in the actual design, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just doing this 400 so I can see how this looks like. So we're going to select this. We're going to say this is going to be, everything's going to be horizontally, not this, sorry. Everything here is going to be horizontally stacked. And I think that's all that we need to do here. Maybe we can reduce the logo size a bit. We can say maybe the width is going to be 100. Since the logo itself is not actually a SVG, I think the logo should have been an SVG, and we can tweak that later on, but I can do that separately in a video. This video is already way too long. We're going to say this is going to be start. The spacing in between these elements is going to be 16, and maybe the padding here can also be reduced to 32. Okay, I think that's done. That's our footer logo for the mobile variation. We're going to say this is mobile. Okay, that looks fine. Now coming to the header variation of the logo, and we're going to build this menu separately in a separate video, just so this video doesn't get too long and it doesn't take me quite a lot of while to actually upload this. Let me see if you want to make any other changes. I feel like we should actually just go ahead and reduce it. Maybe, just maybe bear with me. Okay, let's just go ahead and actually reduce it really quickly. So I'm going to select all of them. And actually, let me just select all of these as well. So I have these selected. I'm just going to make the height smaller. I'm going to make the width smaller. Okay, so that's done. I think it looks much better. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.